just give a pass to Joe Biden and he's going to go along. Well, yeah, supply chain breakdown. Now, remember, too, this has been their song for a long time. When inflation began to rise, oh, it's because of the supply chain breakdown. And I posed the question, well, what led to the supply chain breakdown? It was your ridiculous, absurd COVID lockdowns that shut down economies around the world. But they didn't want to bring that up. No, because that's good for society. Wait 15 days to flatten the curve, right? Okay, so remember, 7.5% inflation is up, worst in 40 years. And Joe says it's supply chain breakdown issues, and then Morning Joe, the host on the MSNBC show, comes in and tries to say, well, there's all these things going on. It's like a perfect storm. All these circumstances are happening, and is there anything lawmakers can do? Can lawmakers save the day and stop inflation? He's asking Ratner, former guy for Obama. Here's what Ratner says.
Sure. Well, first of all, Joe, they're not really all outside factors or things that a perfect storm or things that just rain down from heaven. This is highly a self-inflicted problem, not just by us, but by the rest of the world. And I say with regret that everything President Biden just said in that news clip that you showed was basically wrong in terms of what's causing inflation. The problems with the supply lines did not cause inflation. Inflation. Excess demand caused the problems with the supply lines, which then caused inflation. We're actually buying more stuff than we've ever bought before. Imports were up 20% last month, and that creates, if you try to import 20% more things through the port of Los Angeles than you did before the pandemic, that causes supply problems. And so it has left us in a really twisted up situation. I can go through other examples like that. But the answer is that in the short run, there's really nothing the administration can do. They've tried to talk about a lot of small bore things like hearing aid prices. That's obviously not going to have an effect on inflation. But I think what the lesson learned is we have to be much more careful with our policy actions, both at the congressional level, where more spending, more deficits would not be a good thing, and at the Fed, where unfortunately interest rates are going to have to go up.
Okay, and it goes on and on. But isn't that shocking? Former Obama Ratner says basically everything Joe said was wrong. How can that be? Joe just repeating himself for the past several months since inflation began to rear its ugly head. Oh, it's a supply chain breakdown issue. And Ratner says, no, not that at all. It's not, and he dismisses Morning Joe's idea that it's just a perfect storm. All these different things are influencing and causing inflation. And Ratner, I think much to Morning Joe's and Joe Biden's chagrin, totally disagrees. Says, no, these are frankly all Joe Biden's fault. And later on in the interview, he says, this administration's spending has come home to roost. The Build Back Better idea is not working. Well, they can't even pass it for one thing. But what policy, can anyone tell me a policy? Email me, jason@currentdisclosure.com. Email me. Please tell me what policy has the Biden administration put into place to actually help the economy, to be less burdensome on American workers, to be less burdensome on American business owners and entrepreneurs. Is there anything that he's done? Because I can't think of a single one. All right, but enough about inflation, at least for now, because it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. We will continue to watch this play out. And I think it will be, depending on what happens during the midterms, who knows that's so far out. I know the media, especially the fake stream media, likes to build this up. Oh, it's February and November is right around the corner. Hurry up. And a lot can happen in between now and then. But hopefully, if sanity prevails, and I know that's a big if, hopefully there can be some drastic changes in Congress that might stop Joe Biden from doing any further damage to the economy, to our country, to the borders, to our military, and pretty much every aspect of our lives. But let's shift gears, shall we? Quite in a literal sense, because I want to talk about the Canadian trucker situation that we've been watching now for several weeks. I applaud them, of course, as many of you do. I think most of you do as well, for what they're doing, taking a stand against these tyrannical vaccine mandates, clogging up the capital there in Ottawa, Canada, then clogging up the bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, until the police have showed up now, and they have politely and peacefully dispersed. Okay, so their attempts, and I still believe they're going to try to do this, they're trying to stir up these Canadian truckers or any other protesters that side with them, and they want to turn this into a type of January 6th situation. They want, when I say they, I'm talking about the tyrannical leaders, Canada's leaders, the U.S. leaders. Not all of them, of course. That would be ridiculous. But there are those that want violence to break out so that they can come in and provide the solution. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem with the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates. They wait for the reaction. The American public, the Canadian public, the French public, and so many other Australians, so many other countries around the world, they respond, they react, and they say, enough is enough. We're not going to put up with this. And then they come in with the solution. Problem, reaction, solution in their attempt to further along the Great Reset. So you got Canadian truckers trying to stand tall, police threatening anyone that would dare give these truckers food or gasoline. Meanwhile, I have yet to see any violent Canadian truckers. Have you? The media, they're waiting with bated breath. We've got to capture this on video. We've got to capture some violent Canadian trucker. They can't. Most of them, yeah, they're very bold in their statements. Some of them are extremely politely bold, if you can do that, waving their Canadian flags, smiles on their faces, saying, hey, we're doing our part. Come join us. Even though guys like Trudeau hiding under his table, saying that he's got COVID, and saying, well, even Bill Maher came out, and listen, again, I feel like I have to say this all the time. No fan of Bill Maher, but when he comes out and speaks the truth, can't help but agree with him. Bill Maher coming out and saying so much against these mask mandates, against the vaccine mandates, against Trudeau. When you've got even some of the left, and I say some, coming out and seeing the obvious, frankly, that this can't continue, that people are standing up for themselves. And frankly, we need to see more of it here in the blue states, if there's anybody left that actually believes in freedom. But Tucker Carlson talking about it. Canada's leaders are panicking because citizens now have decided they're going to stand up. They're tired of being told to inject something into their bodies they don't want, whose long-term effects cannot be known. They're sick of it. They're standing up. Enough is enough. Far-left leaders, and this article is from Infowars.com, far-left leaders in Canada and the U.S. are in a hysterical panic because citizens are finally pushing back against their tyranny surrounding COVID restrictions and vaccines, according to Fox News host Tucker Carlson. And Tucker came on and said, we've been covering this truck strike in Canada all week, and at the end of the week, there were a couple of different images that kind of floated around your head. Picture the cops stealing the fuel from the freezing truckers. Picture the smiling trucker talking about love and waving the Canadian flag. Totally non-threatening, Carlson said yesterday during his show. But above all, Tucker said, you remember the hysteria of the people in charge as they look out on the sea of working-class people who are sick of being pushed around. People in charge are extremely upset about this. Hysterical. It's hilarious. You could just picture a transportation secretary like Peter Buttigieg jumping up and down, shaking his little hands, screaming at the truck drivers, get off my bridge, you guys. Get off my bridge right now. Carlson noted the head-spinning hypocrisy of leaders like Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden lecturing about the law when they break it every single day. That's the funniest part. These people don't care about the law at all. They believe they make the law. This is the prime minister who ordered the cops to steal people's fuel. There's no law that says you can't have fuel in Ottawa. He just made that up. Now he's lecturing about the law. Joe Biden, who was violating federal law on the grand scale every day by importing 2 million people illegally without any consent, he's upset about the law. Justin Trudeau is so upset. Did you hear this? He's threatening the truckers' children. He said, quote, "It's time to go home, especially if you have your kids with you. Wouldn't want something to happen to them," said Trudeau. This little weasel. And there's also loads of irony in the fact that Trudeau is freaking out about Canadians blockading the border when he did exactly the same thing for unvaccinated citizens. Trudeau also attacked the protesters for closing the border. Only Justin Trudeau is allowed to close the border, not these truckers, which he's been doing for more than a year. So what are we watching here? It's more than hypocrisy. What we're watching is straight up panic. These leaders, none of them, Trudeau, Biden, most of the global leaders detest what they're seeing from freedom-loving citizens. But not, you see, it's not just freedom-loving citizens, it's citizens that love freedom that are willing to stand up and speak out and take action to make sure that they maintain their freedoms, keep their freedoms, and not lose a single one of them. And they're doing it, by and large, very peacefully, and in Canada, extremely politely. And you know, and I hope and I pray that I'm wrong about, you know, I speak of a false flag operation, Russia-Ukraine. I pray and hope that the FBI, or Canada's brand of the FBI, doesn't infiltrate a group of Canadian truckers that just suddenly turn violent and make an armed siege on the capital of Ottawa, or anywhere else for that matter. And then, you know, of course, you got the Department of Homeland Security over here in the States. They're panicking, freaking out, because they're afraid that this whole Freedom Truckers convoy is going to spread more into this country. I mean, you've got Rand Paul out there saying, "Hey, truckers, come on down. Wherever you are, Americans, Canadians, come on, truckers, disrupt the Super Bowl tomorrow." And then Rand Paul says, "Come on over to Washington, D.C., disrupt things here." Well, why not? You've already got enough political gridlock. You might as well have transportation gridlock as well, right? All right, let's move on to this. This is another bombshell story. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. I found it in the Daily Mail, and I guess the fake stream, corporate-owned, state-run propaganda media would say that this is all conspiracy theories because only the quote-unquote alt-right news organizations are talking about it. Here's the headline from the Daily Mail. The CIA has a secret surveillance program called Deep Dive that has been collecting Americans' personal information for years without congressional approval. Democratic senators say. This is from the Daily Mail, published yesterday, February 12th, 2022. Get this, folks. I mean, you talk about disturbing Big Brother 1984 dystopia world we're living in. The CIA has been collecting the personal information of Americans for years in a secret surveillance program that has no congressional approval, according to a newly declassified letter released by a pair of Democratic senators late Thursday night. Senators Ron Wyden of Oregon and Martin Heinrich of New Mexico are branding the collection warrantless backdoor searches. They sent a letter to top intelligence officials calling more details about the program to be declassified and demanded immediate action. And the sad thing, folks, is that most people, unfortunately, will hear about this and say, "Oh, what can you do? Big deal." Or you get this response really disturbs me. The response of, "Well, I've got nothing to hide. I don't care if the CIA is collecting personal information about me. I'm a good, upstanding citizen. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I got nothing to fear. What do I care if the CIA or the DA